Hey, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much, as always, for checking out this video. Really do appreciate it. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Shout out to the 9 team. We have some fever coaching news. Now, I believe when I heard this whole thing, this is actually something from the time the Connecticut Sun were to play the Indiana Fever not that long ago in the playoffs. But Stephanie White, the then coach of the Sun, who's been rumored to be potentially a replacement for Christie Sides in Indiana, was asked about the Indiana Fever and talked about the Fever franchise in Indiana, which is where Stephanie White is from. So I wanted you to take a listen to this, and it's got me thinking about some other things with the Indiana Fever and their coaching situation and what this might mean for the franchise. I'm curious what you all think as well. So let's dig in.
The last time Indiana was in the playoffs was in 2016 when you were coach. What's it like just to see that the growth of this franchise right now and how it's been able to grow not only on the court but just off the court?
Yeah, it's exciting. Certainly I was born and raised in Indiana, and so have a lot of pride in Indiana basketball, and a lot of pride in the Fever organization, being a player and a coach there. And it's exciting what's happening with the organization and where they are. I mean, most organizations have their ups and downs, certainly. But I'm proud of the growth of the Indiana Fever. Excited, about the future of the Indiana Fever. And unfortunately, we're the ones that have to play them in the first round. But at the same time, there's always a special place in my heart for that organization.
And there you have it, folks. Stephanie White praising the Indiana Fever organization and her time in Indiana. And now we have the rumor that came out recently from multiple sources that the Chicago Sky, I'm sorry, it looks like the Chicago Sky are out now, but at the time, the Chicago Sky, the Connecticut Sun, and the Indiana Fever were in talks with Stephanie White to be their next head coach, which of course is a little interesting in Indiana considering Christie Sides is still employed. So first, I want to address something I've seen in a lot of comments, and that is this idea of some people that don't want Stephanie White in Indiana because of the dirty play from the likes of Dejanay Carrington and Alyssa Thomas against Caitlin Clark. So Thomas was there before Stephanie White. She was playing the same way before Stephanie White showed up. She is, if you're a fan of the Connecticut Sun or you're a teammate of Alyssa Thomas, you look at Alyssa Thomas as a physical, competitive player. If you are not a Connecticut Sun fan and she is not your teammate, you're probably saying or at least maybe not publicly, but you're thinking she's a dirty player. And look, I have no respect for Alyssa Thomas at all after the BS she brought out after the Connecticut Sun Indiana Fever series with her nonsense and lies, disparaging Indiana Fever fans and, accusing them all of being a bunch of ists. So I think she's just a dirty player and wasn't necessarily targeting Caitlin Clark. And I don't think that's something to hold against Stephanie White. You might have a different opinion, and that's fine. I understand it with the way Caitlin Clark was treated in this league all season long. One other thing that was a concern was play style. I think good coaches adapt. I don't think Stephanie White would try and make Caitlin Clark a slow it down, touches in the paint type of player. I think you see more of that from Connecticut because of the personnel that they have. We all know there have been changes in the Fever's front office already this offseason. Amber Cox coming in, named general manager and CEO. Pushing Lynn Dunn to the side, although not completely. Lynn Dunn has moved into an advisory role with the team. Now, here is an issue to think about. Here's the problem I have potentially with Stephanie White is that the Indiana Fever seem to be getting into a bit of nostalgia, right? They're kind of getting their judgment clouded by nostalgia in terms of let's get the band back together from when Indiana was a playoff team, right? When Lynn Dunn was the coach, and now she's been moved aside, but she's still on board as a consultant. Kelly is back, right? Stephanie White was the coach the last time the Fever were any good and made the playoffs. In fact, Stephanie White spent 11 seasons with the Fever organization. She was there as a player for 5. She was there for 4 years as an assistant coach, 2 years as a head coach. But are they simply trying to get the band back together? Are they simply trying to get the band back in hopes of recapturing the magic of long ago success? But here's the thing, these people were never the Beatles to begin with, right? They weren't the Beatles. They had some success, but they weren't winning championship after championship. They captured one with Lynn Dunn as coach. And more often than not, these things are lightning in a bottle and you simply cannot go home again. And my belief on this, my opinion is the Fever may be feeling the pressure a little bit. We all know Caitlin Clark is a generational talent and the clock is ticking. If the Fever manage to keep Caitlin around and she plays 10, 12 years in Indiana, I think most of us will look at a failure of a career, not for her, but for the team, a failure of a career if the Fever don't win 3 or 4 championships in that time with Caitlin Clark on the court. I mean, look, we just saw the worst version of WNBA Caitlin Clark that we're going to see. You know, she's Lou Gehrig. She's not Wally Pipp. She's only going to get better from here. And that means the clock is ticking on every single decision that the Fever make. It magnifies every single decision that the Fever make because they can't afford mistakes that set them back a year or 2 years or 3 years because then they're just moving deeper into Caitlin Clark's career and they're missing out on opportunities. Look, y'all know I've been advocating for replacing Christie Sides for a long time now. Still am. And I think Stephanie White is a good coach. But again, you got to wonder with the moves they've made if the Fever are caught up in the past as the right way, the right path to the future. And they're not looking past their own success back in the day in order to make the future even brighter. Look, it's great when a favorite band that broke up gets back together. Seeing them perform old songs, the old hits that you love live on stage, absolutely amazing. That's why so many of these older bands that are going back on tour are selling out. But rarely is the new material anything like the old. Rarely is that magic recaptured. Look, I am a huge GNR fan, but let's face it, and seeing them live would be incredible, but let's face it, when they finally recorded some new material after all those years apart, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't Guns and effing Roses either, right? You understand what I'm saying? The clock is ticking on the Indiana Fever. If they make the wrong decisions, the Fever during Caitlin Clark's era, during Caitlin Clark's time, they won't be the Beatles. They'll be the Monkees. Good band, had some big hits, but they never were the Beatles. I hope that makes sense. And look, like I said, I think Stephanie White's a good coach. I'm not against her coming here, as I said. I think she'd be a complete upgrade from Christie Sides. But I do wonder about the thought process, about the way the Fever are handling this, and if they're looking at other options, or they just close themselves off to it's going to be Stephanie White or Christie Sides, and they're not looking elsewhere. And I get there may not be a lot out there because you're in the middle of, right? WNBA actually plays in the off season, really, when we talk about basketball. So all the good coaches are coaching somewhere right now, other than ones that probably don't want to coach. Which, I've mentioned the Cheryl Millers and the Larry Birds. I mean, you want to get the Fever fan base pumped up for next season. Imagine convincing a Cheryl Miller or a Larry Bird to step in and take the reins and become the head coach of the Indiana Fever. I'd say that would sell tickets, but look, the tickets are already being sold, but that would absolutely ramp up the feeling around this team in the offseason going into next season. But I'm going to leave it there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below about Stephanie White, about what she said here, about the possibility of her coming to Indiana. We've got more stuff coming. I actually had time to do a non-WNBA video yesterday, although I don't think anybody saw it. But hopefully you'll check that out if you do notice it on the channel. I would really appreciate that. And that's it for this one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We've got some other stuff still coming with the Fever, some things that I want to do that are more like bigger picture as opposed to right in the moment newsy, talking about the upcoming draft and free agency and all that stuff and what that looks like for the Fever going forward. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you later.